Hello and good morning. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I'm here as usual on Wednesday for the next hour to talk about Stonemaier Games news, to discuss random topics, and to answer your questions if you have any questions today. I'm happy to answer anything other than spoiler stuff, but what is a spoiler these days? Yeah, I hope you're having a good Wednesday so far. Kind of a darker, somewhat dreary day in St. Louis, but it's kind of nice. It's been a very hot summer, so it's nice to have a little cooler day. Austin, Chad, LB Jeeper, Joshua, Garrett, good to see you today. Obviously, part of what we're talking about is still Stamp Swap, which I announced last week and have been revealing over a course of design diaries over the last week. And so I'm happy to show you anything in this box or discuss anything about it. I'll try to leave it on the screen right there and not knock it over. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for popping in. I had a busy weekend. I was designing something pretty much all day on Saturday, something new that I'm really excited about. And then on Sunday, I was doing rulebook revisions pretty much all afternoon for a product that I was not expecting to spend all afternoon doing rulebook revisions for. It was a little unexpected how much work needed to be done on this rulebook. This is not Stamp Shop I'm talking about. This is a different game. So that was an interesting way to spend the weekend. But I did have some quality outside time on Sunday where I spent some time with some friends just walking around, playing a little bit of light disc golf, trying to still take it easy on my core because I had a recent appendectomy, but just taking it easy, throwing some short distances to see how that goes. And so far it feels pretty good. And then Megan and I took a nice stroll yesterday through the local Tower Grove Farmers Market. It was a beautiful day in St. Louis yesterday. So we had some more quality outside time. Yeah, Chad asked, how am I healing up? Pretty good. Yeah, I don't really know what to expect from this. I'm taking it easy. I am running up and down my stairs now as exercise, but yeah, I have 3 incisions in me from less than a month ago, and so I'm trying to be careful and aware of these things. But I've never had this happen before, so I don't know like how a scar feels versus what the beginning of a hernia feels like. So I'm a little extra cautious about those things, but or at least I hope to be. But I am feeling good. I feel pretty normal, really. I have a few questions for the day for you all today. So let me ask one of them right now. I am filming a video on Friday about my favorite filler and short games. I'm filming this with 2 ambassadors. So we're talking about games that you can set up, play, and clean up in about 20 minutes, give or take a few minutes. It can be shorter for sure. It can also be a little bit longer. But yeah, filler short games. What is your favorite filler short game and why? I may not read them all out loud here, but I may, if they aren't already on the ambassador list, I may make a note about it and note it on the video that we're filming on Friday. I see Helen and someone else said that I'm getting a little laggy, little bad connection. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why that is, but hopefully it corrects itself soon. Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing anything different on this end. If that continues, let me know and I can reduce the video quality to see if that helps. I think Megan might be watching. It might be streaming something in a different room, and that might be impacting it. But I don't know exactly why that would happen. Yeah, so that is my first question of the day. I'll get to the other one a little bit later. My chocolate of the day today. What is my chocolate of the day? Maybe I have a little dark chocolate. I'm looking at it over here. I don't keep it on my desk because I will eat it all. But I have some dark chocolate with a little bit of sea salt on it from a local place called Cacao that I really like. So that might be my chocolate of the day today. What is your treat of the day if you have one upcoming? Steve mentioned Mini Rogue or One Deck Dungeon if your character dies early for short filler games. Tony mentioned Spots. I've had Spots go on much longer than 20 minutes. So I love Spots, but I don't think I'll mention it on this particular list. But if you can get through it in 20 minutes, that's awesome. Daniel mentions 9 Lives. Garrett also mentioned Spots. So maybe some people are playing Spots quicker than I can. And I have noticed, I will on the video, I'm going to mention Board Game Arena as almost a separate category. Oh, Megan, I see Megan mentions Boop up here. I'm going to do a two-player category too, Megan. I think there's some great 2-player games. Ian mentioned Strike. Again, I probably shouldn't read through all these, but I love that they're in the comments here if you want to check out the comments and see all these great suggestions for filler and short games. But I think I'm going to do a 2-player category really briefly on the video. I'm going to do a Board Game Arena category because there are games that play like Boop. Boop takes, I would say, longer in person. Not as a bad thing. It just takes longer in person. Seven Wonders on the table. I would not call Seven Wonders a filler game, but on Board Game Arena, it's definitely a filler game. You can burn through a game of Seven Wonders in like 10 minutes in real time on Board Game Arena. So, Susanna mentioned Bag of Chips. Susanna, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually recently bought Bag of Chips and I didn't have it on my list, but it needs to be. I really, really like Bag of Chips. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, Susanna got me into Bag of Chips, and now I'm loving it. See, Deep Sea Adventure, Sunday Split will be somewhere on my list. Honorable mentions were somewhere in there. Nicole mentions Captain Flip. I have that on my Board Game Arena pick, Nicole. I really, really enjoyed that on Board Game Arena. That's one of the ones that I think is maybe borderline if you can actually get through it in 20 minutes on the tabletop, but I don't really know. I've only played it on Board Game Arena so far. But I am going to mention those Board Game Arena games that we can play in 10 minutes. That take longer on the tabletop. But on the heart of the video will be about the filler games that I play on the tabletop. I see Faraway, so I'll put, I've never gotten through a game of Faraway that quickly. Maybe on Board Game Arena. Maybe I can mention the Board Game Arena category. And I see, and I know people play games at different speeds. I tend to take pretty quick turns, and I try not to be impatient about other players, but sometimes I get a little impatient. See Micro Macro, Dice Miner. I love Dice Miner. That one too is on the edge for me. I don't know if I've ever gotten through a game of Dice Miner faster than like 30 minutes. So I wouldn't quite call it a filler, but I can see it's on that edge. Sea Salt and Paper, Deep Dive, For Northwood. I can see For Northwood being right on the edge. Point Salad. Some great picks here today. I'll stop reading them out loud because you can see them in the comments, but I love what you're saying about filler and short games. Feel free to add any insights to it as well if you have anything in particular that you think I should think about or talk about in that video. We had a few fancy dinners over the last week. What was the first one? On Sunday, we went to a local place called Indo that has just kind of really good seafood fusion dishes. It's one of those times that we're a little bit more pescatarian than vegetarian. We had a delightful dinner there with Megan's brother and sister-in-law, they live in St. Louis, but we hadn't seen them in like a month due to various travel. And then we had a really special dinner. A chef had this at a local restaurant that we like, had this dinner where it was kind of like a farmer's feast, farmer's table like dinner where he could only fit 48 people in this space. And he made a preset meal, 6-course meal for the people who attended, and drink pairings with all the food. And it was delightful. Like it was, I love seeing chefs in their element and just cooking whatever they want to cook. Sometimes telling a story through those dishes, like they often do on Top Chef, but I really get to see that in person. And so, it was really neat to see this chef working through this 6-course meal. Definitely a treat. Definitely not something that we do very often, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to attend this amazing dinner. Tony says that his group can all die in Spirit Island in less than 30 minutes. I don't know if that, well, I mean, technically that counts in the category I'm doing here. Although, can you really set up and die and clean up Spirit Island in 30 minutes? I'm a little doubtful on that, but maybe we'll see. Oh, Jeff, thank you, Jeff, for reminding me to actually post the comments. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that reminder. Never feel, please always feel free to do that when I forget to start posting the comments. He says, I also wanted to wish good luck to my favorite Wormspan opponent on their first day of college. I agree, Jeff. I hope your offspring has a wonderful first day of college. I'll just focus on posting questions here. Oh, here's Frank. Frank from the Isle of Games. He says, or the City of Games. I played a prototype of I Made You a Mixtape this last weekend, which may make your list next year. It'll be on Kickstarter soon. It's a great, quick I split you choose card game. I love I Cut You Choose, Frank, from Stamp Swap and in general. So cool. That sounds great. We were actually just talking the other day with some friends about the old practice of making someone a cassette tape or making someone a CD. I definitely used to do that in high school, in college. That was the kind of the CD era, but I haven't done that in a really long time. Frank, I'm loving your updates on the game name that I still can't remember, but feel free to mention it in the comments. I'll say it out loud when you do. Frank has a new game that will be on Kickstarter very soon that he's been working on for a long time with a really cool card dancing mechanism that I read about on Frank's Design Diary post recently. Really, really cool mechanism, Frank. It actually reminded me a little bit. I know it is unique, but it reminded me a little bit of Tidal Blades 2, which is coming out soon. I backed out on Kickstarter years ago. I've started to see some early reviews about it. I'm really excited about it. It's not quite card dancing in the way that Frank did it, but it uses a card grid in a really neat way of placing a card, activating all cards in that grid or column. And if you don't have a card in a space on that grid or column, you get the benefit that's printed on that space instead. Which does have some similarities to the card dancing mechanism, but I'm excited to see what Frank does with it. Oh, Johnny has had a special meal happen. His wife and him went to Sado last night for their omakase. It was our first night out since our daughter was born in March. Such a delicious meal. I'm glad you're able to have a date night out, Johnny. And Indo is, I think, somewhat the sister restaurant of Sado. I don't know how much they're connected now, but originally they were the sister restaurant. So yeah, that's great that you had the omakase. I haven't had that at all yet. I don't think I've ever done that. I am looking forward to doing that and doing some kaiseki meals in Japan, where they just serve you stuff for a while and you get to experience those meals. So Valerie's joining in. She said, missed the questions at the beginning. The question I asked about was the filler and short games that you can set up and play and clean up in about 20 minutes. I'm going to film a video about this on Friday. So I'm just looking for any games that might be on my list that I forgot to add to my list. Scott says, you mentioned that information about the apiary expansion is coming soon. Have you said when it will be available to order? It'll be available to order on the same day, September 4th, as Stamp Swap. So that's when we'll launch both the apiary expansion and Stamp Swap, and the Stamp Swap Rolling Realm pack, along with a few other promo realms. I think we have a Stamp Swap disc and the Champion t-shirt. We're doing all of that on September 4th, so people can consolidate their orders into one single package and save on shipping. So yes, you will be able to bundle it together. I'll start talking. So you'll start to see reviews for Stamp Swap this Friday, and then you'll see apiary expansion content on the 28th, followed by reviews a few days later. Like I think 2 days before September 4th is when the reviews for the apiary expansion will start to come out. So I'm looking forward to talking about that too. Emberleaf, thank you, Helen, for mentioning the name of Frank's new game. It's a beautiful name. I don't know why I can't remember it, but I love the name Emberleaf. Martin says that Insight Up's record game is a great draft and write game. Really enjoyed his first few plays of it. I know what you're talking about. It has records in the name. I think I have not played it. But yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Martin. Carol from the Mill is popping in to say hi. She's just getting started, just getting ready for a new school year in a new district. Oh, I hope the new district treats you well, Carol. And that the new school year goes well as well. I heard that my nieces and nephews were off to school for the first time on Monday over in Virginia, where I'm originally from. And so I hope they are having a good week as well. Let's see. Chad says, really cool that you could work with a close friend like Paul on Stamp Swap. Did you two have business meetings while playing disc golf? Maybe unofficially, we talked about the game from time to time, but usually we'd email a lot about the game. So it was nice to be able to get together locally for certain play tests, but a lot of it was still over email. Yeah. Funny how that works out. Valerie mentions the game Flip 7. I am very curious about Flip 7, Valerie, because it looks nice and short, but has some nice push your luck elements to it. I'm very curious to try that one. Kevin says, can you give us an idea of what content will be added with the apiary expansion? I'm excited to talk about that next Friday, Kevin. That's when I'll start revealing what the apiary expansion is. You'll get a full reveal that day. You'll see the rulebook. You'll see all the components. Until then, we're focusing on Stamp Swap. And then both of them will be on our web store on September 4th. Tony says, will there be a Watch It Played with Rodney for Stamp Swap? There will be. I don't know exactly when he plans on releasing it, but he's had the game for a little while. I think he knows about our schedule. And so maybe I'll check in with him and see. I'll send Rodney a note about what his planned schedule is for it. So I can put that on our website. There will also be, I think we did Dized for Stamp Swap, although the rules aren't that complicated. No, we did it. Okay, yeah. So there will be a Dized app. So if you want to use the free Dized app, it's an interactive tutorial that you can use. It's completely free. We pay for it, so you don't have to. That can help you learn Stamp Swap. So if you ever want to play and you haven't learned how to play Stamp Swap, you can just put the game on the table and turn on the Dized interactive tutorial, and it'll teach you how to play as you're playing, which I think is pretty cool. There you go. Garrett says that Draft and Write Records is on Board Game Arena, and it's a blast, worth checking out. Maybe I'll have to check that out at Virtual Game Night tonight. Draft and Write Records. Awesome. Thanks for mentioning that, Garrett. Let's see. Anthony says, have you finished planning your trip to Japan? I did. Thank you for asking about that. Yeah, we have a trip to Japan coming up later this year, and I did. I spent a week, 2 weekends ago. I spent pretty much the whole weekend doing all the research for travel and lodging in Japan and deciding exactly where we're going to go. Not entirely exactly what we're going to do yet in those places, but I have some idea of quite a few ideas of what we might do. We're going to leave that part flexible and try not to schedule too much so we can be flexible, go with the flow, do the things that we enjoy doing. Anthony says he's going in October. Can't wait. I plan to check out a board game store called Yellow Submarine while I'm there. I am too. It's actually quite near the offices for ArcLight, which is our Japanese partner. And so I'm hoping to stop by ArcLight to say hi and then go check out Yellow Submarine. I think it's in Akihabara area of Tokyo. Maybe there's more than one too. Ray has a long question. Let's see. I attended my first game convention this past weekend. I hope that went well. Ray, I remember you talking about that a few weeks ago. He says, I had a quick question for you and other people who have attended a convention before. Do you find going by yourself to be the less ideal way to go? I ended up going on my own because most of the people I knew were busy. I had a decent time, but got a strong impression that most people were attending with at least one other person they knew. And consequently, most everyone already had a game or table going at any given time. I ended up having more... I didn't see the end of the comment there, but Ray continues to say, I also volunteered to teach expeditions with the expansion and did have a really good time doing that. Thank you for doing that, Ray. I really appreciate that. I have heard from some people, if they go to a convention just by themselves, that the volunteering a little bit helps them get into the flow and helps them meet people and helps them have a few things to do, especially people who might lean towards a little bit more introverted like me. I'm curious to hear what other people say about it. So I have found at Geekway, I have been surprised by how easy. So I go to Geekway with people. I do. So I know some people there, and I've gone for many years now. So I definitely see familiar faces. Also, I'm on these videos. I'm a game designer. I'm a game publisher. Some people will call me over to play a game with them, which is awesome. I really appreciate when people do that. But even without that, even before that, in the early years when no one knew who I was, and I didn't know anyone there. I found Geekway in particular, I thought they did a really good job of making it very easy to wander up to a game and get involved with it. Sometimes it took some impetus for me. Sometimes I would see someone playing a game I loved, and I would wander over there and be like, oh, I love this game. Do you guys have any questions? Like, I just learned, I know it really well, or something like that. I wouldn't brag about it, but I would show them that I was there to help. And sometimes that would turn into me playing a game with those people, maybe even the same game or maybe another game. Geekway also has these giant wooden meeples that have little flags on them that say either teacher wanted or player wanted. And so that's a nice way to signal to other people and really to scan the room and see, okay, there's people over here that are looking for players, and then you can wander over there. I'm always still, as an introvert, I'm impressed when someone goes to a convention alone. I think it's a bold, courageous move, and I know it can be a little bit more difficult. But hopefully, if you go to the same convention again next year, Ray, it might be a little bit easier because you might recognize some people. You might know a little bit more the feel of how to go into that convention solo and see how it goes. But I'm curious what other people say as well. If they have any tips about that, if they've done a convention solo, or if they just won't go to a convention unless they can go with other people, which I completely understand. Tinkelar says, have you ever house rule retired a card because you found it too powerful in a game? I would not say too powerful, but there are some cards in Everdell. I'm thinking of this specifically that I think are mean, and so we don't play with those cards. We don't. I think sometimes actually I do put them on the bottom of the insert, but if we draw them, we just move them aside. I remember also doing this with Yedo. I love Yedo, but there are some cards. There's like different sets of event cards in the game, some of which are particularly brutal, and we don't play. I think that like the samurai cards, we don't play with those cards because they're pretty mean. So yeah, I have done that selectively with a few games. Yeah. Fairly Odd Parent says, are you going to the new Nintendo museum that they announced opens on October 2nd? Ooh, that's cool. That was not on my radar, but I'll make a note of it. If we can get in there. That would be really cool. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Okay, Valerie says, this was a comment I had at Gen Con. I wish Board Game BGG and other events would have a sign stating solo looking for players, so it'd be easier to meet people and get games going. Yeah, I think, and this is a great example of a way that the event coordinator of the convention can facilitate solo attendees by having those sorts of non-intrusive signals where you don't have to go around and ask people if they have room for a player. They can put up a flag and say that they want a player, they're looking for a player, or you are looking for a game. I think sometimes it does help if you pick a game that you want to play and you go through the effort of setting it up and put up that flag that says, hey, I'm looking for somebody, I'm looking for a player. I think that can be pretty welcoming and maybe a little bit easier than looking around for someone else who already has a game on the table. Sometimes I think both can work. But sometimes also you might be sitting there for a while, which is the downside to setting it up and not having someone there come up to you. Jeremy says, I was watching an older video where you talked about deluxeified games. I appreciate how you make games accessible, but provide the ability to buy deluxe components, playmats, and metal coins separately. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, what we generally try to do with our games is, I'll leave your comment up for context, is to make them feel really nice and high quality and verging on deluxe out of the box, but at a good price. We do have some more expensive games. It doesn't always happen exactly that way, but Stamp Shop, I haven't revealed the price for it, but I think you'll be really happy when I do reveal the price. And for Stamp Shop, we actually don't have any separate deluxeified components that you can buy. We don't have any add-ons for it. But for some games, we do that. And I think that's a nice way to leave the door open for someone who doesn't care about all that fancy stuff. But if they want to add it, if they get really into the game, they get really excited, or they want to buy a gift for someone who loves the game, then we have those metal coins. We have the fancy resources. We have the fancy stuff, the metal mechs sometimes, depending on the game. Yeah. G-Money14 says, played some disc golf on Monday and used their new Wyvern Destroyer. That's one of the Stonemaier custom disc golf discs. Shot a 4 down on a pretty hard North Carolina course. That's awesome. Easily becoming one of my favorite discs. Thanks again for producing them. Yeah, thank you for playing with them. In the disc golf world, there's a big convention or big event happening this week, starting, I think today or tomorrow. That is Disc Golf Worlds. It's like the biggest tournament of the year, basically. And it's happening, I think it's happening. Well, no, I don't know where it's happening. I think it's happening in Illinois, maybe Kansas City. I think it has taken place in North Carolina in the past, but I don't think it is this year. But yeah, it's something that you can check out on YouTube if you're curious to see some of the best disc golfers in the world doing their thing this weekend. LB Jeeper says, a bit of an open-ended question for you to answer as you wish. Do you have any expansion, growth, or deviation from the norm plans for Stonemaier? That's an interesting question. I can't think of anything offhand that is not a spoiler, but generally we stick to the things that we generally do. Our normal release schedule, the types of games that we publish. I have one thing in mind in the works that is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but in general, those are exceptions to the rule and very specific, careful exceptions to the rule. Yeah. Let me ask. I'll throw it out there to you though. Is there something on your mind that you're like, I wish Stonemaier would do this? I know it's not a typical thing that Stonemaier Games does, but I wish they would do this. Let me know if there's anything that comes to your mind for that. Yeah. Let me know. I see some people commenting, both relating to what Ray said about going to a convention alone and complimenting Geekway's flag system. Frank can relate to that too. I see Luke relating to that. Carol says, I recommend signing up for a game event to help meet people initially at a convention. Yeah, that can help. Yeah, I like to go with the flow at a convention, but even at a convention like Geekway, which is largely a go with the flow convention, there are still events that you can sign up for. I think that's a good way to get in the mix and meet some people, find the type of people that you vibe with, and maybe after that event, you can play another game with them. I think that's a good recommendation there. Nicola says, will the new Wingspan expansion have some new mechanisms or just more cards? I'm curious to find out that myself. I have not seen, I'm kind of giving Elizabeth all the time and space that she needs to work on the next expansion. And so I'll find out in the future whenever I see the expansion for the first time. So I don't know. I honestly don't know. I also probably wouldn't spoil that at this point in time. because it's way far in advance of when we'll release that expansion. But my guess is that it will have more bird cards, and that there probably will be some sort of new mechanism, but probably not something that adds too much complexity to the game, because we definitely avoid doing that with expansions. Try to keep the complexity curve reasonable, especially as we have 3 more expansions to go with Wingspan. Dawson says, have I played with the Bloomborough cards yet from Magic the Gathering, the new Magic the Gathering set? I'm really excited to play it. I have my draft pack here, but I'm not planning to play it for about another month. I have something coming up in about a month when I plan on playing with them. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Dawson, and I'm glad people are having it yet. Dawson, I'm curious, actually. I would love for there to be a content creator, and there probably is one out there, where I can go. I would love to watch or read set reviews for Magic the Gathering in the similar way to how we talk about board games. A new board game comes out, we can watch a dozen reviews about it, or read a dozen reviews, or listen to them on podcasts. But I haven't really found that for Magic the Gathering. I find that most of the content about it is about like the value of the cards or strategy, which is interesting. But I just want to hear someone look at a set of Magic the Gathering and be like, oh, I think this is really cool about it. I think this works really well. I think this doesn't work as well. I would love to see that for Magic the Gathering. I talk about Magic whenever a new set comes out that I play. I talk about it from a game design mechanical perspective, but I'm not familiar with another reviewer or a reviewer doing that. And if you have any recommendations, let me know. Let's see. Luke says, how much take that is too much for you in a game? Take that in a game is like when you can directly disrupt another player. You can hurt another player in a game. I don't like any take that. I'm okay with some direct interaction, which is, a type of take that. Really, really little. I think like any more than a little bit of combat in a game, basically, or I don't know. I don't like picking on other players. It doesn't feel good. I avoid those mechanisms in games. Like if a game has it and I can do it, I will avoid doing it unless it's a 2-player game. 2-player games are the exception for that, because the 2-player games, dueling style games, we're both opting into that experience. But in multiplayer games, I don't really want it at all. I'm not drawn to it. Let's see. Just looking for a few questions here. Oh, that's right. G Money says that Disc Golf Worlds is in Virginia, Forest, Virginia, kind of near. It's in like the western part of Virginia, where I'm from. I should know this. Chad says, I find it odd that more publishers are not emulating your business structure, specifically how you announce a game just before putting it up for sale. Any thoughts on why others are not? And it's neat to hear that reviewers are saying good things about our business structure. I appreciate that. I find it maybe a little odd too, Chad, but I also know that there are times where publishers who have gone deep into the crowdfunding model, they have tried this style or the Stonemaier style, and it hasn't worked for them. And I don't know if that's because of the way they tried to execute it. I don't know if we're just lucky. I don't know if it's due to our champion program. A lot of people actively like wanting to buy our first run products. Or if part of it is that because we made the switch to this strategy years ago, and I've honed it over the years and refined it over the years, but we made this, our last Kickstarter was in 2015, that is how our audience is accustomed to getting our new products. Whereas anyone who's used Kickstarter for a long time and hasn't broken from that consistently, their audience is used to and accustomed to, and maybe even looks forward to their crowdfunding projects over the alternative, which would be just to announce and release the game, or announce launch and then a few months later retail release the game. So I don't know. It could be a combination of all those factors. It depends on a lot of other things for those publishers. But I think it's smart actually for publishers to try different things and to see what works for them and what works for their audience, and to see the best way to serve their audience. I think that's the key, really, to find the best way to serve our customers, our audience. Valerie says, in a previous livecast, you talked about rulebooks and welcomed hearing good examples. I recently picked up Voidfall, and while the game is very heavy, they have a tutorial built in where you follow step by step and refers to the corresponding pages in the rulebook as you learn them. That's great. Made an intimidating game more manageable. Has Stonemaier considered perhaps just a one-page tutorial edition for some of its heavier games? Could be a good addition than rather reading the entire rulebook. So that's great, Valerie, to hear about Voidfall. I haven't played that one yet or seen that tutorial, but that's good to know. We've done it in different ways in our games. In Scythe, we give players a quick start guide. We summarize the rules on reference cards, really, in Scythe and Expeditions. In Wormspan, we have what do we do in Wormspan? We have quick start cards, I believe, in Wormspan. In Apiary, we have the teaching guide. So we do it in different ways depending on the game. For Vantage, I've been working on the Vantage rulebook. I considered it for Vantage, but I found that Vantage is so wide open that I didn't want to use the tutorial that told players what to do. And so rather in the rulebook, I have a very detailed example. And on the back of the storybooks in Vantage is a turn structure guide to show you exactly what to do on your turn that walks you through it. So you really can jump into a game of Vantage, especially if one player has kind of skimmed the rulebook a little bit, read through the example, by using that reference material. So I generally like to use reference material as reference cards, reference guides, and sometimes teaching guides and quick start guides as ways to do that. So different games do it in different ways. I would say we do it we do something like that in most of our games, especially the games that verge a little bit on the heavier side. And even in Stamp Swap, not a particularly heavy game, we have reference cards. Here, I'll pull them out and show you what they look like right now. I have some other, I might burn through some quick topics in a minute. Not too far behind on comments today. Oh, it's John's birthday. Happy birthday, John. Hope you're having a great 35th birthday. What are you doing to treat yourself today? So the reference cards in Stamp Swap look like this. So here they are. They're color coded so that you can show the other players what your player color is by the border. And you can see actually both sides of the cards here. So you can see that one side has examples of the different colors and the different themes, 5 of each. And then there is a round summary. This round summary is actually kind of on the board too, but I thought, we have a card. Let's use the back side of the card to walk players through what a round summary looks like. So you can, that kind of teaches you the game on the fly. And I think reference cards are just really, really helpful for that. They summarize the things that you need to know in such a way that doesn't make you feel like you need to memorize them because they're right there in front of you. Yeah. So I asked the question out loud to someone who asked about if Stonemaier would ever verge away from our regular path and do something a little bit different. And not that we're actively looking to do that, but I'm always curious about what you think. And Joshua says, I wish Stonemaier would make more small box filler games, honestly. It'd be a quick trick-taking game with a twist like Cat in the Box. Thank you for sharing that, Joshua. Let's see, Marlene's joining us. I'm a bit late to join in today, so it might have already been asked, but how is Walter? I can actually hear Walter yelling at me from right over here. Walter, do you want to come say hi? No, he just wants to stand there and yell. She says, I love the pictures you share of him. Also, is there anything you're hoping to do before the end of summer? Thanks for asking, Marlene. Walter is doing well. Right now, I think he wants to go outside, and so I need to let him out on the patio. He's really been enjoying the patio weather. And for the end of the summer, I don't have anything very specific to do by the end of summer. I appreciate you asking. Anyone is welcome to answer that, as are you, Marlene, if you have something in mind. No, I don't have anything specific. Like right now for me, I'm just kind of easing back into regular activity and exercise after the appendectomy. And so I'm hoping to enjoy the summer weather, but I also really like the autumn weather in St. Louis. So I am, while I'm enjoying the end of summer, I'm looking forward to autumn as well. Daniel says, do you have advice for people who are in the audience building phase of their game's development? We have the people who playtest and love the game, but when we're not at cons, I struggle. Thank you for sharing that, Daniel. That's a great question. I do have a big section of our website about building a crowd, how to build a crowd. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And let's see if I have one piece of advice that I mentioned right now. I think the thing that really, really helps, in my opinion, is to simply be active in a variety of different pockets of the board gaming community, not in a way that promotes yourself, but rather just for the fun of it, just to engage and have fun with other people who share this hobby, your love for this hobby and for gaming. Now the question, so that's a big part of it. How do you take that and actually convert it into people who are following your project, your game, whatever you're working on? That is a bit more tricky, and I have some articles about that subject as well. But I think part of it is that you have the infrastructure in place where people who do discover you have a way of following along. Facebook page, Instagram, newsletter, those things. I think that's crucially important. If you don't have that stuff, even if someone wants to follow you and you connect with someone, if they don't have those ways to follow along, and they're not engaged and intrigued by the content you're creating in those spaces, then they're going to tune out, or they're not going to follow along at all. Bridging that gap is difficult. I understand it's difficult. There are some like paid advertising type ways to do it. I prefer to do it over time, and I took my time doing it early on, where I just spent a lot of time talking about the types of things I was working on, and talking about and just hanging out in board game spaces mostly virtually, and building the audience from there early on. And honestly, crowdfunding did help. It helped when I was starting out. That Kickstarter was the launching point, and we got some attention from Kickstarter and leveraged that into something bigger. But when you're just starting out, if you do have like a pre-launch page set up, if you are planning on doing crowdfunding, share it with the right people, the right groups, the right lists that type of thing, and that can help you start to get some people joining that pre-launch page as well. But yeah, check out some of the articles on it. I'm always happy to talk about it more in detail in the comments of those articles. Didi says, I wish Stonemaier Games would have a design day in more cities like his city. There isn't any design or prototype focused all day event near me, and I sometimes daydream of trying to organize something like that. That's a neat, that's a good point. We are considering maybe, so we have such a backlist of people who want to attend design day, but haven't been able to because we have limited space at Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe. And really, it's the right number of people, I think. I don't think it would work if it were much bigger than that. But we are thinking of maybe trying every now and then, maybe just experimentally try one design day where we first invite people who have never attended before and just are on the waiting list. But it would probably still be in St. Louis. But I appreciate you saying that you'd love to see it in another city as well. There are Unpub and Protospiel events in many other cities, but not every city, not every place. Michael says, have I seen the anime After Class Dice Club? I've heard of it. There's some Stonemaier games featured there. I've heard that our games and many other games are featured there, but I have not seen it yet. I think next on my anime list is Delicious in Dungeon, I think it is. And then I need to maybe check out After Class Dice Club. Chad says he's been playing a lot of Rolling Realms and catching up on your live plays. Thanks for playing along, Chad. Did you ever consider with the Tapestry Realm allowing shapes to spill over the edge of a city as in Tapestry? I did. Yeah, that is one of the thematic breaks between the realm and Tapestry itself. I thought about it, but I thought that would make large shapes just strictly better. And so I decided to break from the rules of Tapestry there and confine you to that space, which makes the puzzle, I don't know. I actually don't know if it makes the puzzle better. Feel free to try it the other way if you want to give that a try. But I think it does just make the big shapes better. Whereas generally in a game of, and when you're using the Tapestry Realm, it's a mix of big and small shapes that you need to succeed, and deciding when exactly and where exactly to place them. Zaktal says, would you consider publishing games from European developers, or is design a too integral a part of your decision which game you want to publish? Oh yeah, we're open to working with, and we do work with designers from around the world. Your location has nothing to do with our decision space. Like I said, even I worked with a local St. Louis designer on Stamp Swap, and we mostly emailed about it. So where you are located has no impact on it. It is nice to see games at Design Day. We do scout for games at Design Day, but we have the main way to submit a game to us isn't even Design Day. It's just our submission form on our website. So yeah, we are open to publishing and working with anyone from around the world. We really like to do that. Let me think if we so like Morton, who does Automa Factory. Morton's from Denmark. Hobie, who did My Little Scythe, he's from he lives in Canada. And really most of the designers I work with are not here in St. Louis anyway. So even though they may not be international, they are far away. Yeah. Kai, who I worked on the Wind Gambit with. Kai's in Germany. Yeah. People from around, I love working with people from around the world. Let's see. So let me take a quick break from questions, talk about some other topics real quick, and then I'll come back and do questions for the last half of the live cast. Books and movies, usually I like to talk about the things that I'm watching or reading. I watched The Instigators, a movie, a heist movie on Apple TV recently. Thought it was pretty good. We watched the movie Babes recently too. It's an adult comedy, and that pretty funny. I enjoyed that one as well. Forgetting one that we watched, I can't remember the other one that we watched. I am reading right now the new series of books from James A. Corey. It's actually two authors that write under that name, and they're most famous for the book series The Expanse. I love The Expanse. This is not related to The Expanse at all, but it is a sci-fi, somewhat space-related novel, and so far is really, really good. Really good. I don't want to spoil anything about it because I think it's best for you to figure it out on the fly. But if you liked The Expanse and you like these authors, their writing style, I highly recommend checking out this book. The book is, let me look it up real quick so you know the name of it. James Corey, Mercy of Gods. Mercy of Gods is the name of the book. Yeah. Really enjoying that so far. Other things going on. I did a live stream with Board Gamer World on Instagram on Friday. That was great. Great little 20-25-minute chat on Instagram. I don't know if you can find it afterwards, but feel free to check out Board Gamer World on Instagram to see if you can find that chat there. Also had the pleasure of hosting game designer Pam Walls, who was coming through town on the way to a gaming retreat. And she stopped by. We had dinner with Pam. She came over for our game night, and we played Blob Party with her. I love Blob Party. I was a little nervous to play it with the designer, but Pam was game for it, and we had a blast playing Blob Party with Pam Walls, and also played some other games with her. And then she came over the next day. We played another game. We played Dungeon Maker Deluxe together, which is a published game from another designer. And then we play tested the game that Pam was working on, just to have some fun with Pam, give her some feedback, and that was great too. And she's even more delightful in person than she is on her YouTube videos. If you haven't watched Pam's game design channel, I'd highly recommend it. She is one of the most transparent, open, just wonderful people, I think, in the hobby. And she's a very talented designer. Best known, I think, for Blob Party, but also more recently known for Chronicles of Light. So yeah, check out our YouTube video if you haven't. And thank you so much, Pam, for stopping by and taking the time to hang out and play some games with us. Also, among those games that we played at game night were a lot of light, shorter games, as I think Joshua mentioned earlier. We played Fairy, which is a game about making hand signals to the other players. We played Rainbow, which is a shedding game. We played Dropolter, which is a dexterity game where you have some things that you're holding in your hand, and you reveal a card, and everyone has to drop the things shown on that card on the table before other players, and you can't drop other stuff. Neat little short dexterity game. I played the new Dominion Rising Sun expansion on the app, the Dominion app, which was really, really good. And probably the top of the list, could be a contender for top 10 games of the year so far, is I played The Gang, which is a cooperative poker game. So you're playing poker, but you're playing it cooperatively, in that you are trying to both signal to other players and eventually guess precisely the order of strength of your hands without actually revealing what your hands are to the other players. So it's a really, really neat twist on poker. There's no bluffing. There's no betting. It gets rid of that. And it's just about getting an exciting hand of two cards, seeing the flop of cards, seeing your hand's strength get stronger or weaker as you play, and then trying to signal that to other players. It also has a really neat mechanism where if you succeed, the next round is a little bit harder. And if you fail, the next round gets a little bit easier based on some asymmetric abilities that come into play temporarily. Really cool game, The Gang. And I'll be talking about it on a video on Friday. So check that out if you have the chance on Friday. I think that is, let me throw out, before I get back to your questions and comments, let me throw out my other question of the day today. I did some articles about friendship, really. My last two articles on the Stonemaier Games blog were about friendship. But the question I have for you today, and this is not me doubting the success of this game in any way, but I want to explore it a little bit because I'm consistently amazed and flattered, really, that people will come to me and say, I have played Wingspan 500 times, or my wife and I, my husband and I, my partner and I play Wingspan every night. I've played 1,000 times. I've won 1,000 times. People play Wingspan, who get into Wingspan, seem to play it a lot. And I'd love to know, I'm going to do an article about this, but I'd love to know your thoughts on why. And also related to that, if the bird theme specifically is a big part of that reason, or if it's more the mechanical aspect of the game, or a little bit of both. Or if it's just one of those things that when people get into the hobby, they discover a game that they connect with, that they tend to just play that game a lot, and Wingspan happens to have a lot of replayability. So I love that this is the case. I love that people have gone deep into Wingspan. It's delightful for me to see as the publisher, as the person who developed the game, and for designer Elizabeth Hargrave, who poured her heart and talent into this game. I think it's wonderful that people play it so often. But I want to write about it. I want to figure it out because I think this is a question that probably some other designers and publishers have. How can I make a game like this that people will want to play hundreds of times, that they deck out with an expensive nesting box that holds all their stuff, that they love the bird theme, even though it isn't a typical gaming theme? What is it about Wingspan that makes it work in that way? I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any thoughts about that. Yeah. What is the secret sauce to Wingspan? All right, let's see. Here's the LB Jeeper asked the question about will we ever deviate from our standard things that we do at Stonemaier Games. I didn't have anything specific in mind, but maybe venturing into a broader genre of games since you have such a strong reputation, or maybe a little Stonemaier Con. So we do have Design Day, which is essentially a Stonemaier convention that isn't really about Stonemaier Games at all, but most of the people from Stonemaier Games are there. We're just not there to play Stonemaier Games. But maybe someday, I think it would be fun someday, maybe, to do a convention or an event, or maybe a weekend, where we just play a lot of Stonemaier Games, and we do it in a space where anyone can come and play along with us. I'd have fun doing that. I mean, I do it purely because I would have fun doing it. And if enough other people said, I want to have fun doing it, I would have fun doing that with you as well. I'm certainly open to doing that someday. Yeah. Luke says, just finished updating my games on BG stats, including the price paid. The app has a challenge where you can try to get your cost per play down to $5 per play. That's neat. Okay. So if you pay $50 for the game, but you play it 10 times, then that's $5 per time played. That's interesting. Good challenge. Duke of Fall says, I played Wormspan a few times in the last few days, quickly becoming a new favorite in our house. That's awesome. I love hearing that. I love that you're enjoying Wormspan so far. Steve, so I was talking a little bit about onboarding into games. Valerie talked about Voidfall and the tutorial there. Steve said, I found the Tapestry reference cards useful for when people are learning the game. Glad to hear that, Steve. And one of the reasons that we include reference cards in our games. Let's see. Helen, I was a few minutes late on talking about Pam Walls, but Helen, I have now talked about Pam Walls in the live cast. Okay, I asked Dawson about YouTube channels or content creators who review Magic the Gathering sets for like quality and design. But yeah, like Dawson says, they're commander focused. They're focused on a specific style of playing Magic, which is fair. Which is people look at the game through that lens, and I look at it generally through a drafting lens. But I'm just excited about the mechanisms in general. Let's see. MTG Goldfish does a lot of 60 card content. Also, limited resources, a big draft format one, but the videos are long. I'll check out MTG Goldfish to see how that is. Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. Aaron says, perhaps have a design day in both the spring and the fall. I think I don't think it's something that we can do consistently, but I am willing to try it every now and then. One idea that we're trying to explore is maybe doing a design day afternoon at Geekway to the West, so that people can come into town. If they want to come into town, they can do a design day afternoon, and then they can spend the rest of the time playing a bunch of published games at Geekway and having fun with that. So that's something that we're considering. We're looking into that. I mentioned Delicious in Dungeon, and Paige says it is so good. That's awesome. Yeah, we haven't started that yet, but I think that is on tap for one of our lunchtime shows in the future. Let's see. I see some other people saying that they like Delicious in Dungeon. Chad's son Owen says, "Hi, Mr. Jamey." Hi, Owen. I hope you're having a good day with your dad. Marlene asked about Walter earlier. And I think he actually is out on the patio now. Megan opened the door for him. Marlene says her 13-year-old dog loves toddling around in our backyard, sniffing and sometimes scratching his back in the grass. Oh, that's a good old puppy there. I'm hoping to spend some warm summer days with him, peacefully enjoying the world together in that way. We never get enough time with our pets. I hear you, Marlene. I will mention something. Hopefully, I won't get too emotional here. But something that has brought me a lot of joy recently is that I found that on my phone, I have an iPhone, probably around 5 years old at this point. So uh, I found that there's a way, and I don't want to. I have some stuff on the screen, some notifications, so I'm not going to show it. But I found that there's a setting on your iPhone, or your probably Android phones have this too, where the home screen of it, like the screen that I look at when I pull up my phone right now, before I actually before I get all the way into the phone, right? You can change that. You can have it. There's a setting that will bring up a different photo every day, and it can even do a different type of photo. So you can select like people. It'll show you a different person every day within your camera, your photos. I selected pets, obviously, maybe even specifically cats, but I think either pets or cats. And so every day now, I get a little delightful moment in the morning and throughout the day, really, where my phone shows me a photo of a cat. And it's either Walter or it's Biddy, my dear late Biddy. And so, yeah, I love it. Obviously, I'm getting emotional now. I miss my Biddy boy. But it's really nice. It's really nice to see it. And many times it's Walter too. And Walter's thriving. He's doing well. He's coming up on 14 now. And it's just wonderful to see a photo of Walter. But the mix of the two is really delightful. I recommend it. I know it can maybe lead to some emotional moments, but it's a really neat setting. I can't remember exactly how to walk you through it, but if anyone has a phone, a modern phone like Android or iPhone, and it has that setting where it can just show you a different pet photo as your home screen every day, I highly recommend it. It's delightful. I'm loving it. Andrew says, can you make a form to ask the Wingspan question? The box on YouTube isn't large enough to answer in. Andrew, I am going to do a blog post about it soon. And so you can put a full comment in the blog post. So I probably won't create a form specifically for that, but there'll be a post where you can add your thoughts. So start figuring out those thoughts and then let me know on either the Facebook version of it or in the comments of the article on our website. It'll either be tomorrow or Monday, I think. Paige says, for Wingspan has so much replayability and is just thinking enough without being overwhelming, and the birds are beautiful. It's led me into dipping my toes into birding. I love hearing that. So just thinky enough. I like that. And the birds are beautiful too. Yeah, Anna and Natalia have done wonderful work on those birds. Ray says, combination of things. The real world birds are fascinating and endearing, and the sheer variety allows for incredible replayability and discovery every game. Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's a lot of different birds and bonuses and goals, a lot of good variety in Wingspan. Kevin says, I was going to suggest an event at a special location like the Gamers Ranch for 4 days that Stonemaier Games could organize. I do love the Gamers Ranch. It does, and it would be great. You're right. It would be great. I'm not doubting that, Kevin, but it can only fit around 20 people, and you are all sleeping together. So not in the same room, but in the same building. So there's got to be a little bit of an element of trust there with the people that you attend the Gamers Ranch with. It is a cool gaming space. I think probably if we were going to organize a Stonemaier specific gaming event, it might need to be a little bit bigger than 18 people. That's my hunch, but could be wrong about that. Josh says, any apiary expansion news? I did say earlier that I'm going to share what's in the expansion and kind of do a few design diary posts starting next Friday, so August 28th. Leading up to it, we're doing stamp swap stuff, design diary stuff for stamp swap. Reviews will start to come out this Friday. And then I have a Tales from Production video. I think that's coming tomorrow, maybe. But yeah, apiary expansion next Friday. Paige points out, there aren't a lot of rules to remember or teach in Wingspan. Everything's on the cards. And I love that. I love that about Wingspan. I love that about other games where most of what you need to know, most of what the emergent complexity of the game is on the cards, not in the core rules. I love that too. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a cozy and comfort element to it that I found in Wingspan. Julie also mentions the huge variety of cards. Finding interactions between them is a lot of fun. So, and a true element of, I like the word discovery here. Discovery of combos. Yeah. And it's satisfying to develop an engine that helps you get ahead. Also, Julie mentions that her husband is a birder, which probably helps as well. When you have at least one person that you're regularly playing with who is just delighted by the birds. Totally get that. Beverly says that Wingspan was her first modern game and is in her top 5. It was a perfect entry game and will never leave her collection or plays. I love hearing that, Beverly. I love hearing when any of our games were a gateway into the wide world of gaming, Stonemaier Games and beyond. So it's great to hear. Matt says, I find that games with a theme I really like make their way to the table more than games with only cool mechanisms. Wingspan has a great theme and leans into it, which I think appeals to a lot of people. I totally agree with that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Matt. Joe says, my daughter, who usually doesn't have the patience for board games, loves Wingspan. For her, it's the easy entry to the game. So I mentioned a few seconds ago, without learning a ton of rules. She loves the theme, the art, the connection to the real world phenomenon, birds, and the interesting choices in the game. None of this is surprising. I think that Wingspan just achieves the alchemy of a gaming experience that hits all those things beautifully. I think, Joe, I like that the way that you put that it isn't about just one of those things. We've seen other games with birds. We've seen other games with engine building, other games with a lot of cards, and some of them are very successful, but there's some of them are not as successful. And so it's the combination of those things in games like Wingspan that really come together for those, hundreds of plays, a couple million copies in circulation now that makes that happen. Yeah. So it's really the combination of all those different elements. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Nicole has a nice comment about transparent chats every week. I appreciate that. I love them too. They do take a time, but it's only just an hour of me hanging out and answering your questions, learning from all of you. And I thank you for saying that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's my pleasure. I enjoy it. When I started doing the live cast a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago at this point, I was nervous. I wasn't sure how it would go. I wasn't sure if I would have enough to talk about for an hour, if I could just talk for an hour straight. But I've come to really, really enjoy it. I look forward to it every week. And I'm not someone who looks forward to big group activities all that often, but I'm essentially talking to 90 people live right now. And I love that you're here. And I love that I had the chance to hear from you and talk with you. One thing I wish I could do a little bit more often is every now and then have someone join me just for a few minutes. So it could be anyone. I wonder if I can invite someone. No, I can't invite someone live through a comment. But there's a way that I can invite people. Yeah, apparently I can invite guests in general, but I don't know if I can invite specific guests. But yeah, basically StreamYard lets me send out a link to anyone, and that person can accept that link, turn on their camera, and I can have them join the video. So I'd love to try that on the fly sometime. I don't know. Might have to take a little bit of coordination. Yeah, we'll see. Wow, David has already played Wingspan 94 times. That's incredible, David. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm hoping that Wingspan is also that style of game where people play it over and over again. There's the same level of variety as Wingspan. And I would say it has slightly more complex rules than Wingspan, but they're still pretty familiar, I would say, if you know Wingspan. Joe mentioned a similar thing about the iPhone feature. He says it can actually rotate pics at the top of every hour. Yeah, you can set the how often you want the picture to refresh. I kind of like to linger on one photo per day. Like today, what did I get today? I got a biddy today. Yeah, I have a lot of photos of biddy on my phone. But I kind of like to linger on the photo for a full day. Just as I have a rotation of pics of his dogs, including our dog Carl Weathers, who passed away a few years ago. It's always bittersweet to see him, but I love it. I love it too. I'm glad that you discovered that as well, Joe. A lot of people are mentioning the theme for Wingspan. Nathan says, I had the pleasure of filming a video with Nathan yesterday about worker placement games. He says, I've been enjoying the Stamp Shop Design Diaries. I'm looking forward to playing some of the games Paul mentioned in your video from this Sunday because they sounded great as well. Yeah, this past Sunday, I did a video. Thank you, Nathan, for saying that. I did a video with Paul about games, amazing games that we love that have a key similarity to Stamp Swap. Like there are other games that we mentioned that have I Cut You Choose, maybe have drafting, choosing goals with a certain timing, things like that. That was a fun video to film. It's always great to hear Paul's perspective on other games. So yeah, that was a fun video to film. We actually filmed it a little while ago, but I just posted it this past Sunday. Making a little note about Wingspan here. Eric says that he wishes there was more take that mechanisms in Stonemaier Games, even if it was included as an expansion variant. Eric's husband and him are super competitive. I hear you, Eric. I mean, it's something that I really struggle to put in with a game because I don't enjoy designing or playing take that at all. I do hear your call for a variant where it's something that maybe I don't love it, but it is an option in the game to add a little bit to take that. I think the area where we may delve a little into this, and where we do delve a little bit into it, is in like Wingspan Asia. I know I don't have many examples of this, but in Wingspan Asia, it is the duet mode is a dueling style version of Wingspan. And yes, you're not destroying anything that your opponent has created, but you are actively kind of interacting on this map between the two players. You are getting in the way of the other player on the map. So I think there's potential for that, especially in dueling style games, two-player versions of our games. And it worked out for Wingspan Asia to do that because it was also, while it is a standalone game for 1 to 2 players, it is also a 6 to 7 player expansion for Wingspan itself, and just in general, an expansion for Wingspan itself. So I think that's an exception to our general rule of games that play from 1 to 5 players, and that you might see a little bit more of. And that is an opportunity for us to explore that direct interaction element that you don't see in a lot of our games. Even though our games do, I still contend our games have a lot of player interaction. It just isn't fighting. It isn't direct conflict. Or take that. Thank you, Megan, for echoing Nicole's sentiment. I really appreciate that. That is very kind of both of you to say. And Megan says, thank you for these weekly chats. This is such a wonderful community. And I agree. Yes, this is not about, I'm the one that's showing up for the video, but you all are also showing up for the video and the conversation. I really, really appreciate that. Let's see. I try to get through. I know I'm a little bit late here, but I'll go through a few comments. Aaron says that they're a highlight of his week. Oh, thank you, Aaron, for saying that. Tristan is actually awake for these. He's in Australia, so usually he's sleeping this time. But he's in the Dolomites right now in Italy and is able to pop in to say hi. Thank you, Tristan, for joining here at the end of the chat. Scott says, I would love to see you in a guest, but with a moderator as well, so you don't have to worry about playing both roles. So you could just immerse yourself in the conversation. Yeah, that's why I think it might work for just a few minutes, because it might be, I guess, someone popping into like normally, like I'm reading these comments out loud, but it would be you saying this out loud instead of writing it, Scott, I guess. And we maybe chat about your thoughts for a few minutes, and then you would go back to the comments basically. So I would almost wish that StreamYard could make that a little bit easier. Like I can click on comments, and I have a few options here, but I don't have the option through a comment to invite someone through to the video, which would be really cool for StreamYard to do. Chet says, I'm curious about Paul's experience as a freelance game designer, which most game designers are freelance. Very few game designers are hired by a game company just to be a game designer for that company. I think that's very, very rare. I think most game designers are freelance. I hope we can get an interview or something digging into his career. I don't have that planned, but I'm open to it. I'm open. Maybe Paul could join one of these live casts sometimes. But he is a teacher, as his full-time job. So, and a game developer for Elf Creek Games, developer, not designer. So I don't know if he has the availability to join a live cast, but maybe for a video sometime. Steve is joining us slightly too late. Yeah, Steve, these are at 10 o'clock Central Time, the live cast. So I'm going to sign off now and do some lunch stuff, but and some game design stuff this afternoon. But I hope you are doing well. Thank you all for joining me for today's chat. I love you. Oh, here's Paul. Paul popped in. He says, I'd love to come on. I'm only a part-time teacher now. I'm hoping to pop on at the end of next week's stream. So, Paul, maybe we could try this out. Maybe at the end of next week's stream, I could send you an invite link. And if you have a camera handy, you could join in and join the stream live. We'll talk about that next week, Paul, to see if that could work out. But yeah. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday, a wonderful week. Stay tuned for a little bit more content about Stamp Swap, including reviews coming this Friday. And for our reviews, they were reviews of the final 100% finished game. They're not prototype reviews. They're not fancy prototype reviews. They were reviews of what you will be getting if you buy Stamp Swap from us on September 4th. Look forward to that. We'll see how that goes. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.